Chap, straight up, we're going to be talking about male domestic violence, and I'd say we're going to be talking about I hate the word victim, but I guess it depends on the person you're speaking to, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think the term survivor sometimes in the wrong context is a bit. We're going to be talking about male domestic violence, and what we're going to be talking about is blokes where they've been abused, they've been through the wars. So we invited Fergus from AMIS, which is, I'm going to look down, say what it is.
It's abused men in Scotland or AMIS.
No, that's the one there. And it pains me because I love seeing people like you guys about it. I really do. I think you'll always get my full support, even though you're over our county lines in Scotland and
Yes.
we don't blah blah blah. But I don't care. It's about making our community bigger, so the horrible communities get smaller and smaller and smaller. But it really annoys me that it just feels like there is no support for men who are victims or survivors of domestic violence. So I wanted to pull you in, mate, and just have a bit of a chinwag. So do you want to
Yeah.
just tell us about the you are a charity in Scotland, aren't you?
Yeah, we're a charity, abused men in Scotland, so we support male victims of domestic abuse, and also their friends and family members. So it's a hugely stressful thing for everyone who goes through it, and to see like your loved one or somebody that you care about go through it is hugely stressing, and there's not that much support available, so people struggle with, what do I do? So that's kind of what we do. We were set up by two survivors or two victims who, saw the support systems and thought, there's nothing here for guys, so we'll do it ourselves. So we've just kind of grown from there.
And how many people are helping at your end?
There's seven of us now. I think those the two guys who set it up initially have left, have moved on, but yeah, there's seven of us, and we're covering the whole of Scotland, so I think we're doing pretty good considering.
No, I applaud you guys. I really do, and I think for me. It's really hard to get blokes who are happy to talk about stuff they've lived through, especially when it's down to the partner. Normally, when it's been the female partner, it's
Yeah,
really hard to get bloke. I just find it's really hard. I've arranged videos before, and as you know, we don't script the videos on purpose because it means that you, as a guest, can lead the call however you want. So we've
yeah,
originally booked the call about how their wife tried to kill him or whatever else. And I'll introduce the video and they just change. And it goes, and we don't talk about it. There's just like there's just something there.
yeah. Well,
But
it's just incredibly difficult to talk about, and one of the things that we do to try and get people to open up more is, people can call us anonymously. They don't need to give us their name or anything, so they can just talk about what's going on and get the advice and get support.
do you think that's why? Let me give you. Do you think that's why blokes don't call you up? And dare I say, I don't know. Do you ever get mates ringing you up to say, "I think my mate's been knocked around"? Excuse the
Yeah,
terminology, but
yeah. No, no, it's absolutely, yeah, we do. We do. We get people calling up and their friends have been through some horrific things, and one of the things that's difficult is to get people to see themselves as a victim or as a survivor or however you want to term it. I feel like it's really difficult for somebody to see themselves as that, especially
yeah,
because it's seen as like a female issue. It's seen in
yeah.
society that, domestic abuse, that's guys abusing females, and that's kind of how it's seen. So when a guy experiences it, they think, this shouldn't be happening. And then it's, yeah, it's just incredibly difficult for them to reach out and to talk about it and to see themselves as a victim and as a guy, because it affects their whole life. It's their relationship with their kids, it's their house. So
Well, that's the thing that yeah, again, I have spoken way less than you, but and I applaud people like you who do this day in, day out, like how you don't turn into an arse after hearing all of these stories over and over again. I absolutely applaud people like you. I really do. It's something I wouldn't be able to do. But even after this, I'll probably end up going for a walk for half an hour just to clear my
yeah,
head. If you're listening to it constantly, applaud, and you still want to help more, I absolutely applaud you. But I think I've lost my mojo.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I forgot where I was going. So I'm just going to chuck it out there.
Yeah,
Do you reckon male victims are ignored
I think.
or forgotten? Don't know what's the
Yeah,
right
yeah. I
terminology.
think I think they are. I think it just goes back to, it's seen in society as a female focused thing, and that kind of seeps into the policy experience. So in the UK, we have like the violence against women and girls policy, and that covers all victims of domestic abuse, regardless of their gender. So you'll get guys who are a victim of domestic abuse, and then they're seen kind of within the policy as a victim of violence against women and girls. So it's, and I think that makes it even harder for guys to see themselves as a
So,
victim.
sorry, just I heard you, but just say that one again.
Yeah. So guys who are victims of domestic abuse are are seen like under the policy as victims of violence against women and girls, even though they're a male victim.
Is that in Scotland or just the whole of UK?
I think that's the whole of the UK. So one of the things that we quite often hear is that it's emasculating for when a guy's a victim of domestic abuse, and that's
Yeah.
kind of inherent because, well, in society there it's seen as a female only problem, so guys shouldn't be going through that, and it's emasculating for them. It kind of plays on their masculinity, and reaching out for help is that much more difficult. So then when they're seen under the policy as as a woman and girl,
Yeah.
that's just furthering that kind of masculinity. So
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether it's even masculinity. I could see why you'd say that, and I do agree.
yeah,
But I think I think it's also we're telling people they're less of a man than they really are. And it
yeah,
goes back to that thing before. I know we said on a different call before. It's like I'm quite anti telling blokes, like if you Google anything to do with men's mental health, it's always men can cry, men can be emotional, cry, 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 and you'll
yeah,
feel better. But actually, there's no real 100% scientific thing what says actually crying helps as a sweeping statement for
yeah,
people's mental health. Because the answer is more no than yes. So why are we telling men to cry more? And so I'm quite for me, who's someone who was raised in care, and I was taught from a very young age, actually crying does nothing for me.
yeah,
So why would I? So if you're telling me that I need to have a good cry and be more emotional, it's like hold up a minute, I'm not built like that. But I will come for a walk. I feel like I'm preaching the same thing. I'll come for a walk. I'll come for a pint. I'll come for a coffee, and I'll have a rant or bugger off to the mountains and terrorise the Scottish and all this kind of stuff. Do you get what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And I'll put the world to rights, but I'm not a cry. I'm not a cry, and I think
Right.
from what I've seen, I think this is the same with like the whole domestic violence where the man is a survivor. All the thing, but we're kind of telling them they're less of a man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you are when you're labeling them as you know a victim of violence against women and girls. That's what it is. You're calling them less of a man for being a victim, which is a really horrible place to kind of start off your policy if you're trying to help male victims of domestic abuse.
Absolutely, it's absolutely terrifying. And the few very few video, I swear, I'm going to say two, it might be like five videos out of hundreds we've done. I think it's two
Right.
where we've spoken about it as the topic.
Yeah.
When we've shared them, we have had people say, "Well, it happens more to women."
Yeah. Yeah. Which fair enough. That is like quite a common. It's not really a criticism, but it is something that we get often. But
Yeah,
at the same time, the support system's geared to support women. You know what I mean? So you can't have it both ways. You can't have it. You know, most most women are victims, so don't talk about guys. But most support is geared to females, so don't talk about guys. So it's like, where are they supposed to go if they are a male victim? What are they
yeah.
supposed to do? So
Yeah, because I think that's the thing. What frustrates me quite a lot is yes, the stats show that it does happen more to women, and I've always said ever since day one, and I have spoken about it before, especially about sexual harassment.
Yeah,
and all this kind of stuff. I'm well aware that it happens more to women, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk about that it actually happens to men. Because yet again, if men are being logged under females in the government statistic stuff, then that's kind of undermining. And I've seen conversations where it's just like, well, why did you let it happen?
yeah.
You would never ever say that to, you'd never ever say that you'd never ever say that to you'd never
Never.
ever say that to a
I
woman.
know. I know.
Well,
Why didn't you leave?
yeah,
It's a common
no,
list. Like,
yeah, no, exactly that.
it's
And I
way more
think
complicated.
so you've obviously had a lot of conversations, and yet again, I applaud you, man. I don't know how you keep you.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how you're a nice guy. I really don't, because some things with mental health, I find myself getting a little turning very slowly into a bit of an arse.
Yeah.
Because I don't know whether I'm turning into an arse or I'm just toughening up to it. So I applaud each and every one of you, mate. I really do. But it might be a sweeping thing, sweeping question. I don't think you're going to have an answer. What's the impact of a bloke who's been knocked around or abused? Yeah, again, excuse my terminology,
Yeah,
but
no, it's absolutely fine.
is there like a is there like a pattern? Because normally with mental health, when they have a mental health wobble,
Yeah,
normally the first things what go is normally like the relationships, and then things, or there might be drinking, and there's always like a bit of a telltale sweeping pattern, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Is there
We
anything like that?
we see the same kind of things over and over, and it's just because we talk to, hundreds of victims and hear their stories. But one of probably the main things is their mental health. So things like anxiety, depression, even PTSD in the extreme cases. So massive impacts and lifelong impacts on their mental health. Um, Also their physical health. So it might not even be like directly relating to like physical abuse. It might be things like, are they drinking more? Are they taking drugs? Are they, smoking? So things that are going to damage their long term physical health. Massively impacted.
I could imagine that they would, because I don't know. I presume domestic violence, most of it is in to do with a relationship,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
which,
in Scotland, it's a bit different. So in Scotland, it's only people within relationships, but in England and Wales, it's like people living with their carers. Like if their carer abuses them, that'd be domestic violence. So there's a bit of a difference there, but the impact is massive. Homelessness is another really big one. So in Scotland, I think there's one refuge that would take male victims, and it's based up in the Highlands. So it's not really somewhere that people from like Glasgow, Edinburgh, Stirling would want to go to. They're going to be leaving their whole life. So I know that there are a few refuges in England, and we've actually had clients travel down to there, which is quite a crazy thing to ask them to do, like pick up their whole life and go to a different country to get a refuge that should be available here. Um,
yeah, no, absolutely. Because I think there's only like 10 in the whole UK. I think.
Really,
I believe
yeah,
so. I think it might be less now. It's next to zero if you
yeah,
compare it to female stuff.
yeah,
So what I'm hearing on that actually is, even though they're the victim or survivor, whatever. I've said that line so many times now.
yeah.
I don't want to upset anybody.
No, it's fine.
That's the hard thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
I think it sounds very much. It sounds very much, especially if it was like a relationship issue, or I don't know, it could even be stepdad or dad knocking. I don't know. This is the thing.
Yeah,
I can't cover all the angles, so sorry about that one. But it sounds like it's the victim who ends up moving and being taken away from the life that they might deserve, if that made any sense.
yeah,
They're the ones. Basically, they've been battered. They've finally decided to stand up to find out there's actually probably not really that much help out there, which pains
yeah,
me. It really does. And yet they're the ones who have to leave the environment they're probably brought up to and used to.
yeah. They do.
That's
It's
that's not right.
no, it's not, and I think it kind of it goes into, well, what happens after domestic abuse. So I think the people listening, like, who would their first contact be if they were going through a domestic abuse a domestic abusive relationship, quite often they'd think, oh, I'd contact the police. Well, how seriously do you think the police are going to take it? And we've got kind of the data to talk through this. In Scotland, I'm going to speak about Scotland because that's where we work.
That's your stomping ground, yeah.
So in Scotland, about 16 to 18% of the domestic abuse incidents that police go out to will involve a male victim. So that's around 10 to 12,000 male victims of domestic abuse each year in Scotland. And if you look at the convictions of domestic abuse, it's I think there was 14 females convicted. It's something like 4% of the convictions involving a male victim. So you go from 1 in 5 victims are men who are contacting the police, and then 1 in 25 convictions. So it's just such a big difference between how seriously is it taken, what's actually happening to the perpetrator to stop it happening again.
Do you, I don't know I don't know how to word it. You must get the feeling sometimes like you're wasting your time. And the reason I'll say that is I'm stubborn, so I'm going to keep going. But
Yeah,
I don't know about Scotland, but I know in England, like mental health resources, especially with the NHS, are really, really bad. And sometimes just saying, yeah, yeah, telling people to go to the doctors, go and get help, blah blah blah, and you know damn well that's just not
yeah,
there. And this is why we start saying actually go, I don't know, like, rather than going to the police, go to AMIS here. They might be able to help you, or go to Yandy's Man Club or the Talk Club or whatever else. And I did go for a bit of a phase. I'm like, I'm just talking on deaf ears. Do you find that yourselves?
we do. So what I'd say on that is, like these charities, that it shouldn't need to be a thing. But in my opinion, charities it indicates that the government is failing somewhere, needing all of these different charities to talk about
Yeah,
men's mental health. You know what I mean? There's some kind of failing within the system that's
absolutely.
making this necessary. So it's it's very hard not to get kind of bogged down in all the rubbish that happens kind of in this, and all the pain really that you're hearing from people. But you know you'll get calls where people come to you and they're at a crisis, and then you can put them at ease, and that's what keeps me going anyway. That's kind of what I benefit from it. And maybe it's a selfish thing, but it's it's being selfish on helping other people, and that's kind of why I do it anyway, and what keeps me going.
Likewise, mate. Absolutely. I don't care about views and numbers and engagement and
Yeah,
all this. I really don't care. It's where when we get the odd messages, and we do get some pretty frequently of like that video's helped me, this has helped me, that's helped me.
yeah,
So thank you very much. And I love all that kind of stuff. I
yeah,
really do. No, so what support is? I know I'm well aware that you can only really speak for the Scots. But what support is there? Is there actually any support on there where people don't have to spend 5 hours and trying to find something?
yeah.
What support is there, mate?
Well, all right. So I'd say just if you're going through it, just contact you know a service that can help you. Contact AMIS if you're in Scotland. Contact Mankind if you're in the rest of the UK, and they will get you support. It'll be primarily online. It'll be telephone, email support, and some people might look at that and think, "Oh, like I'd be better off just doing it on my own." But you're not. You can get so much advice and so much help. Like it's going to be very difficult for people to go through these experiences, and especially on their mental health. So the emotional support side of things is really great. But aside from that, it's going to be practical support. It's going to be kind of looking at it as problem solving. What are the major issues going on here? What do you want to happen? And then like what can we do to put a plan in place and to get you there? That's kind of how I see the support side of things, and it's going to involve talking to a lot of different organisations as well. And it's kind of necessary because they might have problems aside from the domestic abuse. They might have problems around their disability, problems around, alcohol, drug use. So all these things mount up, and it's going to be really difficult to find one organisation that can cover all of that. So it really is just necessary to just reach out and talk. That's kind of that's
I
how you
think,
start.
I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Just trying to offload it a
Yeah.
little bit. So we're going to chuck this one in it. Is there anything somebody in the person's life they can do? Because I'll be honest, if I knew one of my mates were getting knocked around or by his partner or a fella, it doesn't really matter who it is.
Yeah.
If he's a victim, he's going through some crap, and what can I do? If that made any
You
sense.
you can call up and ask for advice and see kind of what is the person's experience, and really what we'd be trying to do is trying to get him to come forward and
Yeah.
talk to us. That's the whole goal, is to get, the victims talking about what's going on and try and get them some support. But I agree with you, it's hard to know kind of where to start. And to have
To be fair on you, it's a hard question because you know nothing about the situation,
Yeah,
and I get it. But would you? Because I'm the kind of guy, I don't know. I'm the kind of guy. Actually, if I notice something, I probably would say something. I'll
yeah,
never be like, "Oh, is your missus beating you up?" I would never ever say that. But I'll be like, "Is everything right? You got?"
yeah.
I would
I
probably
think
hide
that's kind of how you have to approach it. You can't be, you need to be blunt, but do it in a soft way.
empathy.
Ask them
Yeah,
direct questions, but be kind about it. Really, that's
yeah,
kind of how I go about it. And I think people who are going through it, planning is really the most important thing here, because you know when the perpetrator of abuse kind of knows that you're onto them and you're leaving, they'll do everything they can to control you and to make your life hell. Really, like
yeah,
that's what we see all the time here, is like people drawing out child custody, using their kids as weapons, throwing up false allegations. So it can be incredibly difficult if you don't have a plan in place and know what your next step is.
yeah. And this might be a really stupid question. You've just I don't know why, but you just jogged my memory to a conversation about a year or 2 years ago, and we didn't upload it actually. I don't know why I've forgot about that one. And in the video, be careful what to say, just in case he watches this
No
thing. But
worries.
in the video, he basically said he didn't realise he was being abused, and it threw me actually because I'm like, well, surely you'd know you're being abused. But do you find a lot of blokes clock on
Yeah,
after like
yeah. Well, we get people call us up and they'll say, I'm not a victim of domestic abuse, and then they'll list off, 3 or 4 incidents that are, really, really damaging domestic abuse. So yeah, I think it's hard for people to see it when they're in it.
yeah,
I think you need a wee bit of kind of separation from what's in your head.
yeah,
So yeah, I guess talking to people and kind of laying out what's going on, and it's much easier to see when you can lay out like all the facts, I guess.
yeah.
But yeah,
That's it.
it's something we hear all the time, is people don't realize that they're a victim until something really, really bad happens, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I think is it Stockholm syndrome?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it
When
is
you
it?
when you like become closer with the person who's like I think it was a prisoner thing that came from, right?
I think it was. I remember. So I don't want to take it on a tangent. I remember there was a guy who kept his daughter in. There's loads of cases
Right.
actually. No, I don't know what's jogged my memory, but there's loads of cases where like the Stockholm syndrome is they just get so used to it they think it's
Yeah.
normal and they feel that like they can't even if they left they can't live without that person.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that must be undermining as well, man. That
I think it's even more kind of difficult than that, because it's their loved one, it's their partner, and it might be the mother of their kids. So
yeah,
it goes even deeper than like Stockholm syndrome. It's their second half. So yeah, it can be so difficult to leave. They might not want to leave them. They might still love them and still hope that they can change. So
No, absolutely. So just to re-jog it, just before we draw to a close, there's that little cue, mate. But just before we draw to a close, I know you've already said it, but I'm just going to repeat the question just so we can end it well. I'm a massive fan of what I call a shit sandwich,
Right. Okay.
where you got the good bit and then you talk about the thing, because it's one of those where I don't want to leave it of just how we're in it.
Negative.
So,
Yeah.
so just really quick, like, can you just name drop any support or charities or anything like that, or
Yeah.
just what you said a
Yeah.
minute? Sorry. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's support all over, and I'm gonna miss out so many charities, but AMIS in Scotland, Mankind in England and Wales. I'm sure there's some in Ireland. There's Hourglass for like elderly support. You know, there's so many different charities out there that can support people. It's just knowing who to contact. And if you don't know who to contact, contact one of them. They'll know. They'll get people calling them up all the time looking for support for this and that, and they'll have a service directory, so they'll be able to give you the number that you need. So it's just reaching out, you know.
So they'll do the research for you, so to speak.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they have like a kind of database of organizations and what they do, so they should be able to help you.
Yeah. And just the last one, because there is a charity in Ipswich called Survivors. I'll just say England because you probably don't know where it is, but in
Right.
Ipswich. But there's a charity what we work reasonably close with called Survivors in Transition, and they deal with adults who have not quite dealt with sexual violence or abuse years ago. Now they do it incredibly well. But can you just answer this one question? Actually, is if somebody phones you up, I don't know, I've got the pen out. If somebody phones you up, you ain't going to be ringing the police, are you?
No, not unless there's like a good reason to have.
Yeah, yeah, no, no,
So
it's fine.
unless we think that there's going to be a crime committed or that they're in immediate danger, then no. Like all the information is kind of kept to us unless they want it back, really. No.
Yeah. So you wouldn't, unless obviously you can hear something with a
Yeah, yeah,
chainsaw in the background or anything quite dramatic or anything like that. But actually, if you could, by the sounds of it, if you can avoid doing that, then you're more about
yeah,
helping rather than.
yeah.
Okay. So I didn't mean to put you in a weird
No, no,
place,
absolutely.
but that's
Well, it's
something.
something that we get quite asked quite a lot by our clients really is, you know, like I'm going to tell you this stuff. You're not going to tell anyone else, are you? And you know, the answer is no. Like it's confidential. It stays kind of between us and them, and then we kind of work out what's the next step.
Mate, I absolutely applaud you for what you guys do. I think it's incredible, and my job with this charity is to hopefully one day shut it down because everyone's just looking after themselves. There's no need. I'd like to. I hope in my lifetime, I don't know, maybe there'll be one day where we're both at a job centre because we're
Yeah,
being sacked because there's no need and buy a pint and all this kind of stuff. So I applaud all of you, mate, and the stuff you do. I think is brilliant, and it's so sad that you're one of the few, few and far between. But
yeah,
let's just make that stigma bubble smaller by doing stuff like this.
yeah.
So
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me on and for all the work you're doing. You know.
it's all good. Let me hit the unrecord button.